I was sitting in my house waiting for the second shoe to drop. My wife, with whom I had been with for 9 years, had told me 6 weeks ago that her friends were asking her out on dates. It started with one night, but quickly escalated to 3 or 4 nights a month. Then she started coming home smelling like alcohol, and her clothes and hair were a mess. On these occasions, she always tried to have what she called hot sex. I enjoyed sex with her at first, as I did every time I felt my little devil crawl up my back to sit on my shoulder and chat with me. The first time I refused to have sex with her, citing a migraine, she started blowing me off. The next time she came home, she was so drunk that she fell to the floor 3 feet from the living room and passed out. I picked her up, carried her into our bedroom, and undressed her to put her to bed. Then she muttered, "Okay, Frank. One more time. My name is James." I looked at her, then at my pillow. As my anger reached new heights, I mentally visualized smothering her and thus solving the problem. I'm going to jail. That thought kept my hands off the pillow. I didn't want to go there. 2 weeks later, she was outside again when my phone rang. It was my friend Tim from work. "James, I don't want to interfere with your relationship with your wife, but I took my date to a new club that opened up. Your wife is here, and the way she's acting makes me think you two are having problems." I figured she was drunk again. "Yeah, she went out with her friends again tonight." I shook my head, already knowing how things would turn out when she got home. "I've never seen a bachelorette party look like this. Let me send you some pictures," Tim said in a cautious voice. "Give me a minute and I'll send them to you." The little devil took a high-speed elevator up my spine. Anticipating that this was going to be bad news, I poured myself some cognac and then carried the bottle into the living room. I set the bottle on the coffee table and had just sat down when the phone rang, letting me know I had a message. I pressed the button and saw my wife hanging on to some black guy on the dance floor, whose hands had my wife's dress pulled up enough that he could squeeze my wife's ass with only her panties between her ass and his hands. My first glass had no sooner gone cold than I was already pouring a second. When my phone beeped again, the screen now showed them exchanging passionate kisses. All I could think about was where to hide the bodies. The next picture showed Brittany's hands resting on his wrists, pushing his hands further into her panties. I was already pouring myself another double shot when he sent me a videotape of the two of them at their table. The white guy had his face pressed against her breasts, and the same black guy had run his hand under her dress so far that his wrist wasn't visible between her legs. In the next picture, everyone was sitting around the table, and then I saw her slut girlfriend Jenny squirming in the guy's lap, and the guy threw his head back. Then another, and the camera moved closer to the table and passed near the back of their booth. It was clearly heard her slut friend Jenny asking Bethany, "How long are we staying?" I could clearly hear Bethany's reply as she tried to stifle her scream. "I'm not leaving here tonight." Jenny laughed. "Looks like that asshole is being served cream pie again." To which Bethany replied, "As long as James keeps giving me money, I don't care at all that he's sitting at home waiting for me to wash off." The whole table laughed amicably at this. I had to go somewhere else, anywhere else but home, as it would cease to be my home from now on. I drove around town in my pickup truck for a while. I wanted a cigarette, so I stopped outside an open supermarket. My mind was spinning with thoughts of why this slut was doing this to me. My height is 160 centimeters, weight is 260 pounds, I have red hair, and I'm not bad looking. I joined a gym a couple years ago to build muscle and get back in shape. Now it almost seems like a waste of time. My mind started working on my problem. I took stock of my life. I started my own company from scratch, nothing special, but it still brings me about $2.5 million a year. Taxes, payroll, insurance, and lawyers eat up over half of that amount, but I still make pretty good money. I like doing things for myself rather than hiring someone to do it for me. Bethany, on the other hand, has to call a driver to take her to the hospital if she breaks a nail. She whines endlessly if she doesn't have 2 vacations a year. God, what a selfish bitch she's turned out to be. My company makes wires and connections from computers to earth-moving machines. It's not very glamorous, but every factory in the area depends on my company to supply them with products at a reasonable price. When I started my company, Bethany was very protective of everything in our lives, and I put every penny I earned back into the business. As my business grew, so did the amount of money we were making. She started complaining, "We need a bigger house to entertain your clients when they come in. Then, we need a pool so I can swim to look good for you. And of course, I can't be seen driving such an old car." She had to buy a new one every 2 years. Then, "I need a maid for the house." Then, "We need a chef. And please don't start telling me about where we had to eat if we left the house." The more the business grew, the more she said she needed to maintain her social appearance, so she bought more and more clothes that she wore once or twice. I wondered, she buys thousands of dollars worth of clothes herself, but why does every purchase she makes have to have 4 pairs of shoes with it? The next week I hired a private investigator, and by golly, he was good. He sat me down in his office and handed me a folder 3 inches thick. Said if I wanted to watch a DVD, I'd better have a drink or two beforehand. The folder contained miles of video and audio files on memory cards that I put in my safe a couple weeks later. Bethany and her trainer, Toby, demonstrated how the massage table could be used other than as a massage table. Some of the pictures and videos surprised me. I never knew the human body could flex like that while performing some of the poses I saw. Our love life went from 4 times a week to twice a week. Then the headaches she used to get from sex started. She told me she was going to the doctor to find out what was wrong with her. That's when I got another 2-inch folder plus audio files that I put in my safe. I also found out that she was sleeping with the doctor on a regular basis to make sure she didn't have children. I wanted children, but apparently Bethany didn't want any and asked him to make sure it didn't happen. I had to devise a plan where we would divorce, but in the divorce she would not be able to rape me or my company. I had to pretend that nothing happened before proceeding with my plan. I should have been rewarded for not realizing what was going on. The answer came to me at the supermarket a week later. It seemed that karma was working in my favor. While I was doing my shopping, just 3 people ahead of me in line was a dark-haired woman, absolutely stunning me in every way, with a beautiful baby sitting in her cart. The checkout clerk started to get angry with her because her card had been declined and then reported stolen. That's when she pushed the button that let the security guards know they were needed. They pushed her cart aside, then stood on either side of her and started asking questions, trying to act like junior police officers. They told her they had called the police and would be there soon. Her little girl was scared and trembling, clinging to her mother and screaming. They made her sit on a small bench and wait for the police. The woman pulled out her cell phone and made a call. By the time I was at the register, she was already yelling into the receiver, "Terry, where's the child support you're supposed to be paying?" Then she yelled, "What do you mean you're not paying anymore? The judge said you have to. What do you mean you got a job in Mexico?" Then she screamed into the tube, "She's your kid too. Don't you care about her? Next time I see you, you're going to die real slow, you bastard." She then slammed the phone down on the bench and her body began to shake. Everything that was happening was scaring the kid half to death. She didn't realize what was happening, just wrapped her arms around her mother's neck, screaming and crying. 2 policemen came in and the store manager pointed at them and said something to them. They started to come over. I always supported the police and made helpful donations at their meetings. I happened to recognize one of them. "Hey, Bill, how are you doing?" "James, good to see you. I'm here doing something I don't want to do." He turned to the woman and said, "Stand up, please." I also noticed a woman from CPS enter the store and start walking toward them, looking at the child. I looked the saleswoman in the eye and said, "This is not going to end well for you." She only threw me a confused look. I then left my cart where it stood and walked over to the growing group of people. A woman from CPS had already started reaching for a little girl. I said to her, "I wouldn't touch her if I were you, honey." I looked at Bill. "Why were you so rude to my housekeeper, Bill?" I said to him. He looked at me, then said, The housekeeper? James, she tried to use a card that was reported stolen and my hands are tied. Giving me a sad look. Bill, let me explain. She came here to pay for the first installment of the goods we need for the house. I forgot to give her my card to pay, so she tried to use her card that she used to pay child support with. She found out that her ex was planning to go to Mexico. The bastard told her he wouldn't pay child support because he would be living there. He must have reported the theft so she could get arrested and she couldn't stop him. I then looked at the CPS woman and smiled. I suggest you call your boss before you do anything else, I said. James, is that what happened? He asked. Bill, why would I lie about my housekeeper? I mean, really, I said. Bill looked at her, then at me. I'm satisfied, but I need to pick up my card. Maybe we can track it down from the information on it. I looked at the CPS woman. After telling her supervisor what had happened and giving her my information, her face turned a little whiter. Yes. Yes, ma'am. I understand. I will definitely let him know. I will apologize to him. I'm sorry for bothering you. She just looked at me with wide-open eyes. Her look was priceless. I'm sorry, sir. Please accept my apology. She said you would donate another $1,000 to the fundraiser. Make it $2,000 and tell Sarah she got a deal. You see, I love kids and families who are struggling to survive. I walked over to my cart. Are you finished? I asked her in the same tone of voice she had used to talk to the woman earlier. No, sir. I'm putting both carts together. Excuse me, she said. As we headed for the door, I mentioned to the manager how she had been treated. He looked at the cashier and didn't look too pleased. I hinted that I might find another place to shop. He continued to apologize and then started walking up to the cashier. No one deserved to be treated like that. When we got outside, I asked where her car was. She said she didn't have one. Oh, well, I guess everything will fit in the trunk of the truck. You get your bearings and I'll drive. In the light, I could see her face better, and I liked what I saw. Her ass and legs didn't look too bad either. She directed me to a bad part of town. We stopped in front of a building that should have been torn down. There were junkies sitting in front of it, and one passed out in front of the entryway. Do you live here? I asked, looking at the building. I got a bad feeling about it. She nodded. It's all I can afford without a job. I get a small child allowance, and that's all they give us. She stared out the window, unable to look at me. I locked the truck and the back door, then walked over to the passenger side. Show me, I told her. She led me up to the third floor to the blown-out doorway. I see you've been robbed. No, it's always been like this. It won't close because all the manager does is charge rent but refuses to repair the building, she said, looking at the floor. Where does your baby sleep? I couldn't believe what I was seeing. She led me to a small bedroom in the back of the house. There was a large pile of clothes lying in the corner. We both sleep on this pile at night. I would run to the bathroom to throw up, but the bathroom would make me throw up again. Is there anything in here you want to keep? I asked, looking around the apartment. She dug through a pile of clothes and pulled out a small picture book. In it were pictures of her daughter growing up. Just these. I picked up her daughter in my arms and carried her to the front room. Look around and make sure this is all you need, I said. I heard something behind me. Turning around, I saw a man standing there. By the look of him, the homeless man looked like he was wearing a suit. What do you think you're doing? That sweet piece of ass belongs to me. I was sick of this place and the people who lived here. The woman heard sounds like someone moving furniture, and then the loud sound of something breaking. She looked out from around the corner of the kitchenette and saw that the guy wasn't moving. She saw his head in the hole he'd made in the wall when I rammed it in there. It was the manager, she said quietly. Looks like it's time to go, I smiled. Having dealt with my anger a little, I felt better than I had in weeks. Putting them in the car, I drove them to the hotel where the businessmen who were in town stayed. Do you have any rooms available? I asked, handing him my card. Room 207, he replied. "Second floor. Turn right when you get off the elevator." He gave me my card and key card, and off we went. When we got inside, she saw a large room and froze, looking at everything around her. "Maggie, go watch the TV in that room and close the door. Mommy needs to thank that kind man." Maggie ran off and closed the door. "My name is Cheryl." She started to take off her clothes. "Cheryl, I'm not that kind of guy." When I realized what she meant, "Thanks for the thought." I put $500 on the counter. "There's a clothing store across the street. Both you and Maggie need new clothes." She cut me short. "Whatever you think, I don't mess with married men," when she saw my ring. I looked into her eyes and realized I was starting to fall in love with this woman. Sometimes things change. I then headed for the door. Eat properly and enjoy playing with Maggie in the tub. I'll be in touch. I then stepped through the door, making sure it closed behind me. I had a lot of things to think about and plans to make. I went over them in my head for another long time. Then a plan began to form in my head, but first I had to get rid of my cheating wife. 2 weeks later, Toby walked out of the house and was confronted by two very large men. "Going somewhere?" They smiled and pushed him back into the apartment. "Why don't we sit down?" They pushed him onto the couch. "You've been a very bad boy, and now someone wants to talk to you." A couple minutes later, there was a knock on the door. One of the men opened it and let me in. "Hey, boss," was all he said. I walked in and looked at the loser sitting on the couch. I sat down in the chair across from him. "Hey, Toby, I thought it was about time we met face to face. Do you even know who I am?" Toby nodded, then wet his pants. "Well, I guess you know," I grinned. "I heard that you and my wife used to dance the mambo together. That's dangerous to your health, don't you know?" He began to shake with his whole body. "Would you like me to tell you what's about to happen?" "I'm so sorry, Mr. Feeney. I had no idea who she was. She never told me who she was until recently. You have to believe me. I don't want to die." And then the tears and sobbing began. I nodded to one of the men. He slapped his face a few times to silence him. "I'll never see her again. I'll leave and never bother you or her again, please." I had to smile slightly. "And why would I want you to do that, Toby?" I asked. "I don't understand. What do you want, Mr. Feeney?" "I'm here to make you an offer, Toby." I smiled. "Ah, what do you mean, an offer, Mr. Feeney?" "I want to hire you for a job," I smirked. "What? What kind of job is that?" he asked in a thin voice. "I want to deposit $1.5 million into your account for doing me this favor. Agreed?" "Okay," he replied. "Anything but murder, please." He looked like he was about to shit his pants again. I leaned closer. "You heard the Powerball jackpot of $473 million was won yesterday, right?" I raised an eyebrow. "I heard about that." He tried to give me a sly look. I pulled the ticket out of my jacket pocket. "This is a fake ticket with the winning numbers on it. I want you to convince my wife that it's real and that you won the jackpot. Then you will persuade her to divorce me and run away with you. If you succeed, I'll wire $1.5 million into your account, and we'll part ways. Deal?" "But what if I can't convince her?" he asked. "You guys don't even want to think about that, right?" Toby looked at the gentlemen standing on either side of him. He didn't like their smiles. "Okay, I'll do it." "You made a good choice, Toby." I stood up. "Don't make me come back here, understand?" "I completely understand, Mr. Feeney." "Let's go, boys. Let Toby enjoy the rest of his evening." We walked out, leaving Toby alone with his thoughts. We all climbed into the rented limo and drove off. I looked at Clay and Rick. "You played your parts well." I gave them $1,000 each. "Hang in there. I may have to hire you again before this is over." We all laughed. "Would you like me to drop you both off at Clancy's bar?" They both nodded, and then Rick said to Clay, "See, I told you the acting classes would pay off. I kept in touch with Cheryl and Maggie, making sure they had enough food and everything they needed. Okay, I played with Maggie every time I visited them. A week and a half later, Bethany dropped by the house. For once, she came home early. Another woman walked in with her. She approached me. "Are you James R. Feeney, Bethany Feeney's husband?" "Yes, that's me," I replied. "May I see some identification?" I showed her my driver's license, and she handed me a vanilla envelope. "You've received a summons. Here is your copy of the divorce papers. Good evening." Then she walked away. I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing. I opened the envelope and saw the divorce papers. "You're asking for nothing? Not even half of my company? What made you so generous, Bethany? My lover has made more money than you have in your entire life. In a week, we'll be living in the Cayman Islands, and you'll still be sitting here thinking how you weren't good enough for me. You've already been gone for a month or so. He will give me everything I want sexually and also give me the lifestyle I deserve. So back off, asshole. You never deserved a woman like me. I already cleaned my clothes and everything else I wanted out of this dump. I just wanted to see your face when you broke down, begging me to come back to you." "Why are you laughing, you bloody freak?" she said in a loud voice. "Sorry to disappoint." I dialed the number on my phone. "Hey, the whore is on her way out. You can drive up to the house and start changing the locks. We'll put up the security cameras tomorrow." I then dialed another number. "Hello, is this Whiting's maid and nanny service? I need a maid who can start work tomorrow, and also a nanny who likes to play with children. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow." Then another number. "Hello, put me through on speakerphone, please. Is this the administrator of St. Mary's Hospital? My name is Mr. Feeney. I have some very compromising videos and pictures of Dr. Granger molesting my wife. You can talk to my attorney when he and I sue your collective asses tomorrow morning. Have a nice evening." Bethany tried to say something, but I raised my hand at her. My final call went out. "Okay, Mark, lay it out. Yes, Facebook first, then the contact list. Thanks again." "What's this all about, dumbass?" Bethany asked wryly. "Why are you still laughing?" You could tell by the look on her face that she was about to explode. "Just taking care of some long overdue business, slut. I'd call you a slut, but they get paid for their services." I couldn't contain the smile on my face. A couple minutes later, Bethany's phone started blowing up with calls and messages. "I think it's for you, my dear." I burst into laughter. "Hi, Grandma." I heard Grandma yell from where I was sitting. Bethany's mouth opened into a big O, and her eyes widened. "What videos? Did you hear the audio recording? I'm going to have to call you back." She disconnected the call and turned to me. "You fucking bastard!" Then her sister walked through the door. She only lived a block and a half away from us. "Well, hello, Cindy. How are you spending your evening?" If looks could kill. She walked right up to Bethany. She grabbed her little sister by her shirt and then slapped her across the face with her other hand. "You stupid brat. I told you not to do this, and now the whole family, all our friends, and everyone in this fucking town knows about it." She kept hitting her until Bethany collapsed to the floor. I walked out the front door and saw her entire family's cars pull up, looking for a parking spot, and all of her friends who lived nearby just walked over. I yelled to them all, "Try not to wreck anything. I'm out of here." I got a hotel room, as I knew I wouldn't get much sleep in the house. I grabbed 12 beers and a submarine sandwich and settled in to watch the news. The news crews were showing a cluster fight outside my house. It looked like they had called every cop in town, plus 3 ambulances to help with the wounded. The next day, after checking out, I drove to the hotel where I was staying for an extended stay. I walked up to Cheryl's room and knocked on the door. Cheryl looked beautiful, and so did Maggie. I gave Cheryl my copy of the divorce papers to read while I played with Maggie for a while. When I saw her looking at me with tears in her eyes and a smile on her face, I picked Maggie up in my arms and walked over to her. "How about we go out to eat? What do my 2 beautiful ladies have to say to that?" Cheryl kissed me on the lips and Maggie kissed me on the cheek. Then she asked, "How about Chuck E. Cheese?" We all laughed as we walked out the door. Eventually, we agreed to go to an Italian restaurant so Maggie could get her pizza. In the middle of the restaurant, I whispered in Maggie's ear. She smiled widely and nodded her head. Cheryl raised an eyebrow, perplexed as to what was going on. Then I dropped to my knee. My divorce became final yesterday, provided my house is still standing and has no structural damage. Would you and Maggie please make me the happiest man in the world and marry me? Cheryl couldn't answer as her face was flooded with tears, and she tried to hide her face with her hands. Maggie then walked over to her mother and whispered loudly, "Don't make me kick you in the shins, Mother. Just tell him that yes, I said he could." Cheryl came to her senses and screamed, "Yes!" She threw herself on top of me, dropping us both to the floor, hugging and kissing me. Maggie decided it looked like fun and jumped on both of us too. Everyone present applauded and congratulated the three of us. 5 days later, we were at St. Peter's when we realized Cheryl had no family and my parents had died 5 years earlier. We had no one to marry Cheryl. And then I heard a familiar voice behind me. Bethany's parents were standing there. Her father said, "If you'd like, I'd be honored to stand in that seat." He smiled sadly. "Despite everything that has happened, we still consider you family, James, and so does your beautiful wife." I looked at Cheryl, who smiled and nodded. I turned to them and enclosed them in a three-way bear hug. "Thank you, Mom and Dad. It means a lot to us if you do." I then took my place at the altar. Maggie was carrying the rings. She was wearing a beautiful white dress, and someone had pinned angel wings on her. Then my bride came out, putting her hand on Paul's arm. He was crying and didn't care who saw it. Cheryl seemed to float in the air as she walked over to me and took her seat next to me. As the priest introduced us all as husband and wife, Maggie could be heard proclaiming, "I finally have a daddy." I called Jenny's husband and asked him to check out Bethany's Facebook page. Bethany never made it to the Cayman Islands, but she did make it to her parents' basement. Cheryl, Maggie, and I are anxiously awaiting the birth of our son. We have 2 more months to wait.